So you're U.S. born.
Yes.
Right? And were you familiar with Picasso's work or Picasso?
Yeah. So I knew him on a very surface level. Like I knew about Guernica, I knew about the different phases, the Cubism and the Blue period and the Rose period, but very basic.
So how much research went into this role?
Woo! As much as I could. Like, we were on a very tight timeline, so a lot of it was happening real time, which actually I think was a great way to do it, because we would, the scripts are extraordinarily well researched. So I could trust in them that everything that was represented was factual, and then I could back that up by looking. I had the Richardson books, and I had some of the diaries, like Francois Gillot's book and Fernand's book, which was more my era. So having those resources, I could read a scene and it would reference something, and I could go read about, say, the opera, or the ballet that he created, or the opera that he had seen, or these different things that he had done. And that was helpful for me.
There's a beautiful line there where Pablo says that art is the light that tells the truth.
Yeah.
Since you filmed on set, is there any part of that, so you're basically representing accurate history, whether the bombings, where you were...
Guernica.
Exactly. Anything that moved you, on the human level, you, Alex, that potentially you portrayed on screen, and us as the viewers, we had no idea what you were feeling.
Of course, yeah. I mean, tons of moments, I think, like that. The nice thing about taking on Pablo's younger life is that it corresponds, the artist coming up corresponds a lot with the actor coming up. And to be in Paris and Spain and Budapest and Malta pursuing it was much like him going to Paris and, being pulled out of his environment and just thrust into this really creative environment with in a whole kind of new world with his friends and peers like Apollinaire and Max Jacob, who you just spoke to. I think that with that quote, he's really talking about how you use your experience and you use art to not depict what's physically in front of you, but your interpretation of it. So it's a lie in that it's not the real representation of it, but it's the truth in that it's what you actually, it's a deeper truth. It's not on the surface. So in portraying Pablo, a lot of my truth was funneled through his experience in a similar way.
Playing Picasso during that time, there's so much conflict, especially not just within himself, but also with the world that's going on around him.
Yeah.
I mean, to adapt yourself to that character, to be a part, to try and get, how much outside of his life did you have to study and you have to go apart just to try and get with what the time period was? Because there was so much chaos.
Well, the nice part about being in a production like this is that the costumes are constructed down to the button, so they're period appropriate, and the makeup tracks his life by real images very, specifically, and then the sets are just extraordinary. So that does a lot of the work in terms of transporting to the time period and getting the feel. What I had to do was figure out what the political culture was like and how that would affect the decisions that he was making and his outlook. And a lot of that's written into the books about him. A lot of them bring in the outside circumstances to his life, and the scripts did that as well.
Yeah, because I think that one scene where Picasso, your character is so hesitant to be a part of this, the opposition of the war.
Yeah.
And really does show that you did a lot, you came out perfectly on what it was. So it's
thanks.
Really cool.
Yeah, I think war is a really tough thing because until it's you who's called on in a real way. And at that time, Pablo had a platform, but, it's actually kind of fitting. It's like, Antonio has a real platform, and I'm here young Pablo, not quite there yet. And I think that responsibility comes with a lot of factors.
You get to play Pablo in a period where, in some ways, he's still a bit innocent.
Yeah.
Even though he's very short-tempered.
Right.
Which goes through his whole life.
Yeah.
But I think, do you think that the people around him, because I think that's what I find Picasso interesting, is the people that are around him, the people that he surrounded himself with.
Yeah, the people he surrounded himself with were all very interesting in their own right. You know, they all had their own passions, their own focuses. They were really thriving on each other and pushing into different creative mediums. You know, you've got Apollinaire, who's a poet, and you've got Max, who does everything. And then you've got Pablo, who's painting, and then he'll draw and he'll sculpt and he'll do as he goes on through life. And then you also have all of the women who are feeding him, you know, all of this emotional fire that he's transforming into art. And all of those things, I think, in my timeline, do contribute to his growing up, as well, all of us, you know, especially I do late teens through 40. So in the 20s in particular, I think it's a very fiery period for most people, where you're like figuring out who you are, you've always been in a system, and then you're just like set free in the world, and you have to find out who you want to be and who your people are and where you fall in the scheme of things. And for Pablo, it's just nice that we have it documented so we can really see it, because it wasn't so long ago. I think that he's a normal guy in an extraordinary life. You know, all of his relationships, he really fell in love with the women that he was dating. And he really fell in love with the concept of love, and he like went all the way in. I think he just fell out first. So he left all these women kind of pining for this thing that they had that isn't, and he's got the money and the fame and the credibility and the genius and all the things that come with that recognition. So a lot of people are chasing after him, and I think that leaves a lot of destruction when he's just trying to find something to inspire him. You know, I don't think he meant badly, really. I think that he just left a lot in his wake because he was constantly searching. And that, you know, isn't a kind way to treat others, but I don't think that it was intentionally malevolent.
Did you learn any points in painting while doing this? Because you look like you were actually, like you knew kind of what you were doing there.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's lovely to say. I did paint as a kid for a couple years, and then we had this lovely artist, Andre Merida, who is in Malaga, and from Malaga, and friends with Antonio, who came in and spent an hour with me, kind of, especially for sketching. I think the difference between a painter at my level, which doesn't need mentioning, and someone like Pablo is just the confidence in what he's doing. You know, he's done it so many times. He's like, this is the line. He can draw, you know, a dove in 3 seconds, and I can draw a blob in 3 seconds.
And there we go.
Okay, so we can have
I draw
off.
great stick figures. So.
See? Yeah, it's like people ask me if I cook, and I'm like, I make just the best cereal.
So how much makeup are you going to be going through, that we're going to see you go through?
Yeah, well, I was really lucky in that way as well, because Pablo at 40 really didn't look very old. He kept his Spanish genes kept him young for a lot of his life. So we get some eye bags, we get some jowls, we get I gained weight, which I'm
You can't tell.
still thanks baggy shirt, still trying to like get the last bits of off. The transformation was multifaceted. You know, there's the makeup, there was the weight, there's also he's much sturdier, much less, you know, he doesn't have as much of that naivete, which hopefully you'll saw a little bit of that in the episode you just watched, where his voice gets a little bit lower and start to pick up on some of the things that Antonio was doing, hopefully, and vice versa.
It's funny that you bring up the voice, because I feel like you guys have similar voices.
Yeah.
I was like really impressed.
Jeez, we worked on it. Yeah, because Antonio's got such an iconic sound.
Yeah.
It's really cool to be able to like get paid to try to sound like the sexiest voice in the world.
Well, the casting was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks everything.
Wow.
I'm so familiar with all the even the women in the series.
Look like this.
Like,
Yeah.
Like the actual.
Yeah, and that's such a testament also. The casting was incredible. Rose Wicksteed slayed it. And then it was also, you know, our hair and makeup team and the costuming. Because so much, if you look at think it's episode 3, where like Le Moulin de la Galette, where it's like there's the party that turns into the painting,
Yes.
and the way that they posed the 3 women and the hats, and they like Sonu recreated the costumes to the like nth degree, where I took a picture of our like a picture of our set and a picture of the painting, and I put them together, and I was like, damn, because it was really well done. And then Davina with the hair, like everything was just exceptional, and the positioning of their faces, it was extraordinary what they were able to accomplish.
But the actress that plays
Fernand?
Gertrude Stein,
Oh, Gertrude Stein, Tracy Chimo.
I mean, that's dead on.
Right? Right? How good is she? And like to get the comedy and the heart and still keep it so grounded, and I mean, and the way that she looks, because there's the paintings of her which really aren't supposed to look like her, because that's how Pablo paints, and then you've got the pictures of her, and it's like you see both. You're like, I see what Pablo sees, and I see what the real woman looks like, and the real woman looks like the real woman, and I'm just constantly blown away.
I love the enthusiasm you have. You seem really like excited about shooting this. What was the fun part about shooting this series for you?
Woof. The most fun part about shooting the series, this is like an actor's dream. Everything that I think an actor wants to do, I really got to do in this project. I got to play in a period, got to play a real person, I got to work with an incredible actor and share a role. I was able to travel. I shot in real locations with incredible makeup and costume and set and directors, and Ken, our showrunner, and Matthias, our DP. It's like there was no ball was dropped, and there was nothing, and an accent. Forgot that, which is like the biggest challenge.
It's a good accent.
Oh, thanks. But to be able to do all those things and wrap them into like my first lead in anything was just terrifying, but also really rewarding and thrilling and exciting.
So Picasso's paintings, his life, his politics, it all inspires people up to this day. How has it inspired you?
Yeah, a lot of ways. I mean, the one thing that kept recurring was how driven and how ambitious and how single-minded you have to be a genius who recognizes his potential and gets recognized for it. And seeing also the sacrifices that are made to pursue that level of work and to create, over 40,000 paintings in one's, or works of art in a life. It's like, that is inspiring. I have a lot of respect for it, and also I'm nervous about seeing what is required to get to that level. I don't think you have to do it exactly like he did, obviously, but a lot of people who are named geniuses have similar attributes and similar life experiences, so finding your own way through that and staying like a cool person, I think, is a challenge.
Yeah, like the best of pretty much everything. Granted, he worked hard for it.
Yeah, I think especially on the outside, he had the best of everything, but he did work extremely hard, and I think, all of the external trappings of a life of success really didn't do much for his emotional, I think he was a tortured guy. He had a lot of failed relationships. He was always searching for love and acceptance in the people that he was, acceptance, but love. I mean, he was a man of his own volitions, but he suffered for it in a lot of ways. Even if he had the nicest houses and the most beautiful people around him, it wasn't always easy.
It's no mystery that a lot of times you put a big part of you into a role. Yes, this is a real person, and you're following biography, right? But there's still a lot of it in there that's you. Can you allow us to see what parts are those? So as a spectator, we have the privilege of seeing it and be like, hey, that's Alex right there.
It's impossible for any actor, I think, to try to do a person justice without involving their own experience. the young artists struggle, whatever art you're pursuing, even if it's the art of politics or of business or anything, I think is extremely similar and universal. So a lot of my experiences with, you know, even failed relationships and stuff that happens to people is for sure fueled into Pablo. Also, a lot of my experiences on set, you know, I'm like, I was doing what he was doing while we were both doing it. So
Breaking hearts?
What does that mean?
like, well, not the breaking heart, but I mean like leaving my town and going to pursue my dream and like living in this world where I started to feel more comfortable on set, and I started to really come into my own voice as an actor on this set, real time, while we're portraying this artist who's doing the same thing. That, I mean, I didn't expect how consistently it would translate into the scripts that we were doing. Because if, you know, when we got to Paris and I'm 17 and I'm being told by like my teacher, you know, why aren't you in class, you dick? It's like, you know, I've definitely had those conversations where I'm like, where people are like, why aren't you in acting class? It's like, because I'm doing a million self-tapes. Like, it's not like I'm not working.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not in class right now because I'm like following my own way in, and I'm still doing it every day. But you struggle with a lot of the same things in whatever capacity or whatever genre you're pursuing in life.
It was great.
Where are you from?
Yeah. Well, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio,
Hey.
which is, you know, the most Spanish place in the world. But I grew up in Florida, in Naples, which is my hometown.
What
Yeah.
made you want to be an actor?
Why?
Yeah, what made you want to be an actor?
Well, I was always into storytelling. I had done music for most of my life, like since I was 8. I think I started singing, you know, in our like Philharmonic youth chorale, and then went for that and had an issue with my voice and started needing to find a new outlet for stories and storytelling. So acting seemed to make sense, and then it was a learning curve to try to figure out how to invest yourself in someone else's life. And I am still on that journey because there's a million different stories, well, billions of different stories to tell. And yeah, I've dabbled in all of it, and I would like to expand into all of it eventually. Right now, I want to focus on becoming the best actor I can. I think that's a bottomless pool.
Well, I think you're off to a great start.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you for watching Muse. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and subscribe to see all of our upcoming videos.